And we're live.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Yvonne here from My Halal Kitchen, and I am here with you today for another fantastic interview today with someone very special who created something that you really, really need to hear about. Welcome, Abed Awad, CEO of ShariaWiz.com. Thank you so much, Abed, for being here today.
Well, thank you very much, Yvonne, for inviting me. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum to all of the viewers who are watching today.
Well, we had an interesting discussion on Clubhouse last week, or I think it was maybe the week before, right before Eid, about your product, ShariaWiz.com, which is an estate planning Islamic will product that people can fill out online and get their affairs in order. It's not something that everybody wants to talk about, but you've done a fantastic thing for our community. And I would love for you to describe to us your background as an attorney and what prompted you to develop this product, what needs that you saw weren't being met, and how you developed this, and basically how people can utilize that. That's a lot of questions, but I know we'll get into it. So if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you started ShariaWiz, that would be a great start.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, for hosting this live event. As you said, I'm a practicing attorney. I've been practicing for more than 21 years in the New York, New Jersey area. And I have native fluency in Arabic, and I'm an expert on Islamic law. I've taught at Rutgers Law School for 16, 17 years. I write about the topic of Islamic law, and I act as an Islamic law expert all over the country, including England and in Canada. And one area that in addition to the litigation that I've handled, I started working in the estate planning space, specifically for clients who were requesting faith-based estate planning. They want their estate plan to comply with their religious requirements. So in that space, what happened is that the Islamic law of inheritance is dictated in the Quran. And many people don't know much about it. And the reason being that when you pass away in a Muslim country, there's no need for you to worry about the Islamic law of inheritance, because all your assets and estate will be devolved according to Islamic law by operation of law, because that's the way it is in Egypt, in Palestine, in Pakistan, in Malaysia, and Indonesia. But when Muslim Americans came to me as couples and we would have the discussion, they would be a little bit concerned that this is not exactly what they wanted to do, because the wife would be entitled to 1/8 of the estate if there were children, and they were reluctant to proceed with the faith-based estate plan and decided to go the secular state-based estate plan. Yes. And I said, that this is the Sharia is a methodology and epistemology that produces knowledge. It's not a black and white. It's a system, and based on the circumstances, the socio-economic, familiar circumstances, the Sharia adapts and adjusts and produces solutions that are anchored in the moral message. So I decided that I'm going to embark on engaging in the Islamic law of inheritance, and I spent years of study on the Islamic law of inheritance and formulated numerous Sharia compliant solutions that demonstrate that the Sharia is dynamic, alive, and is able to adapt and accommodate to the needs of the American Muslim community. So after 3 years of development, research, lawyers, staff, thousands of hours of testing, we launched ShariaWiz. And ShariaWiz.com is an online platform that will allow Muslim Americans to prepare and make their faith-fulfilled, state-specific estate plan, which includes an Islamic will or an Islamic trust, and including a healthcare proxy or what we call a living will, that are compliant with their religious traditions, with numerous solutions that are unique and specific to the Muslim American community, whether from spousal issues to gender issues to mixed families and converts and so forth. So
Yes.
that's like the background that led me to launch this project.
And just for people, chiming in just now, we were talking with CEO Abed Awad of ShariaWiz.com about the importance of estate planning and planning your will according to Islamic guidelines. And Abed has a lot of experience and has done a lot of research to figure out the proper way to do this, and the right people, the scholars, that you've really worked with a lot of wonderful people to put this together in a way that is correct, number one.
Absolutely.
And really adheres to the issues of American Muslims in particular. And I myself went on ShariaWiz.com and started this application to figure out who my heir, how would I disperse, my belongings, how would I bequest whatever I have after I die. And that in itself is a interesting thing to start thinking about. I think a lot of us don't think about that too much, but you don't make it very painful. You make it very easy to do. And it doesn't take very long, which was really what I was surprised about. And for those of us who don't have Muslim heirs, you calculate all these kinds of things that I always thought, well, there isn't anybody who can really help me here. And so I think for people who feel overwhelmed with it, with the concept, and for people who think that it's maybe too complicated, that nobody understands, you've covered all of these bases, which is fantastic.
It's very simple. The ultimate objective was to make estate planning, Islamic wills and trusts, affordable, easy, and accessible. So we've automated the entire process to enable you, if you're not married and you don't have children, or you're not married but you have children, probably 15, 20 minutes, and you'll be able to finish your estate plan.
Yeah.
If you are married with children, a little bit more complicated, probably 20, 25 minutes, and you can have an estate plan ready. And what we've done is consistent with the Sharia. Everything is transparent, meaning you're able to go on ShariaWiz.com right now, prepare your entire estate plan, get a chance to review your document, all of this before entering a credit card. If you don't like what you read, you don't pay. The only time you're required to pay for your estate plan is if you decide you want to print it and you want to validate it. At that point, you would have to pay for the process. Not only that, you're able to update and change your estate plan for free for life. You pay once. So we know that there's life events, triggers. Maybe you weren't married, now you're married. Maybe you got divorced. Maybe your parents passed away. Any life change, just go into log into your dashboard and make your changes, print it out, notarize it, get your witnesses, and you're good to go.
Yes, I'm almost done with mine, and I still haven't been asked to enter any kind of password, credit card. So you just register. It's so easy. You just register, create an account. But I've answered all the questions relating to, who my heirs are, whether I have children or not, or, Muslim relatives. I love that you do that, because a lot of people think that you can't bequest anything to non-Muslim relatives. If, like in my case, I don't have any Muslim family members. So I always thought, you can't give anything to non-Muslim family, but that's not true.
Yeah, from a non-Muslim perspective, it's true that a non-Muslim cannot be an automatic heir, but that doesn't mean that you cannot leave a bequest or
exactly. So we have an interesting question actually. One woman, Erica, she says, "I have no heirs. I'm more concerned with honoring burial requests." Mm-hmm. I didn't say anything about that in the platform, but can you address that?
Do. So the last question, after you finish, it's going to ask you, where do you want to be buried?
Okay.
And you can pick, my family will decide, my estate, my executor will decide, or you put a specific place. Already, the template of the ShariaWiz is a Muslim burial, from the cleaning to the preparation to the burial, and also a request for it to be a speedy period. You're also asked, what is your position on autopsy? You can
wow.
select that you do not consent, or you leave the decision to your family, or you consent if it's to discover, if there was a crime or if there was some major issue that you want. So all of these issues are covered. So the ShariaWiz template covers everything from your family tree to your debts, which are very important. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you have something to will, don't stay 2 nights without writing your will and having it with you. So everything relating to debts, from debts that you owe to family members, to debts that you owe to a friend, to moral and religious debts. Maybe you have a child who has left his job to care for you because you're elderly, and you don't have the financial liquidity to pay for his time. You can acknowledge that you owe him this money for the services provided, and you want it to be paid out from the estate. If your wife had contributed, whether financial or non-financial, to the acquisition of the marital estate, you can acknowledge that. You can modify your mahar obligation to increase your mahar to cover certain obligations you have to your spouse. All of these debts are covered in the debt section.
That's another thing I love about this platform, is that it's not it's a very static document. It's a very active document, right? So if things change, you can just go back in and make those changes while you're alive, and you don't charge people for that, right?
Absolutely. It's free of charge. You make all those changes.
Right.
But the objective here is to make the platform your estate planning platform, that you have your document there. Anytime you wanted to update it, you simply update it, because estate plans are usually, you're supposed to, as lawyers, we tell you, review and update your estate plan for a life event. Review your estate plan, every 3 to 5 years. So this is why it's a process. It's not just a one-time event. You want to do it, you want to update it and change it. You may not have money right now, and all of a sudden you become very close to your mosque, and you say, you know what, I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a bequest to my mosque. You may have not included it the first time you did your will. Well, now you can go back to your will, update it, and leave it in a charitable bequest.
I think this is a very important point, because people feel often, whenever we hear the word get a lawyer for something, people get scared because of the cost.
True.
And so every time you want to make a change to something, it feels like it's going to cost a lot of money. So you have really, really opened this topic for us, and this ability for us to get our affairs in order so economically. And even if, I think in the last conversation we had, you said, even if you pass away and there are a few changes that needed to be made, I think a power of attorney could help with that? Or how does that work?
Here's how it works. Number one, to your Islamic will is $199. If you do an entire estate plan, which is the Islamic will, the living will, and the general power of attorney, it's $250. If you do an Islamic trust, which is a waqf-based individual family trust, that would be $499, and that also includes the will as well. Now, the ShariaWiz template takes into account, when you prepare your will, you're going to answer a family tree that will produce. We have the only Sharia compliant and audited Islamic inheritance calculator in the market. Raqaba, which is a Sharia auditing company, audited our calculator and certified it to be accurate. We are in constant testing mode to pick up any possible errors or any issues. But we also, after you enter your family tree, it will generate who the Islamic wills are and what their shares are. But every Islamic will on ShariaWiz includes a detailed 15-page Islamic inheritance appendix, which allows, if the executor, if the Islamic heirs, that the family tree had changed from the time you signed the will and the time you passed away, the executor has the authority to rely on that appendix and recalculate all those shares. So you don't have to, it's advisable to make those changes, but if you don't, you're still covered.
So right now, this is applicable to only American Muslims, right? It's not applicable to any other. Okay.
This is a American Muslim project. It's state specific, complying with the laws of the United States. We are studying and looking to open up to Canada, to the UK, and to Australia. That's in our growth plan in 2022.
So how does this work if you own a business as well? Is that something you can include in your will? Like not just your personal funds? How would you deal with that?
Yeah, so let's explain what's the estate. When a person dies, his assets transfer two ways, either by will or by operation of law. And I'll give examples. Okay. So currently, you own a home. Your home is with your spouse with the right of survivorship. That means that when you pass away, your wife is going to receive the house. That is never covered by your will because that asset never makes it to the estate. The only thing the will covers is what becomes part of your estate. If you have a life insurance policy and you put your cousin as the beneficiary, that life insurance policy, when you pass away, goes directly to your cousin. It never goes to your estate. So what happens? That's what we call by operation of law, because you have already pre-selected the beneficiary that is going to receive that asset. Now, from an Islamic law perspective, from the estate, if you own a property and there's no right of survivorship, that property is going to become part of your estate and it will be distributed according to the shares in your will. If you have a bank account and it's in your name, it's going to be part of your will. A retirement account is going to go to the beneficiary, not to your will, unless you name the beneficiary to be your estate. So that's why it's important to keep in mind is that not all assets that you own or money that's going to come to you will be part of your estate.
That's something that I think most of us don't think about, those a little bit more complicated issues. So if we go online and we start this process and we have questions like I just had, is there a way to chat with somebody, or
absolutely.
How does that work?
Number one, every single issue, every question has an eye icon. You click on that eye, it will explain the question and answer most frequently asked. We have a very robust and thorough learning blog called the Halaqa. All of these questions are there. It explains what an estate, what's not an estate, what do you do with a retirement account, all kinds of informational, educational stuff about estate planning is already on our website. We have more than 50 posts on it, on these different issues. You can contact ShariaWiz, the phone numbers on the website, and you can also email us. And we'll be able to help you through the process or answer any questions. Of course, ShariaWiz is not a law firm, so we cannot give you legal advice, but we're able to go through most of these issues without a problem.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty straightforward, but the one question I did think about was like the business part of it, and I think a lot of
Let's go back to the business part. Now, the business part, it's going to depend. Is it an LLC? Is it a corporation? Is it a sole proprietor? Who owns it? If you own a percentage of that, let's say you have a partner, you own 50% of an LLC and your partner owns 50. When you pass away, that 50% of the LLC becomes part of your estate. And your heirs are going to have an interest in those assets.
Right.
Now some people who have small businesses, they may have an agreement saying that, here's a life insurance policy. If I die, my family gets the life insurance and my partner gets the shares.
Mm-hmm.
But for businesses are going to be part of the estate unless you have a succession plan and you've decided how that asset is going to be distributed.
I think that in our last conversation on Clubhouse, we got a little deeper too. We talked about some of the misconceptions people have, because these are not just in terms of the legal confusions that happen. I think that's just anybody, Muslim or not, would need things to be clarified. But with Muslims, things tend to get, we have like diverse opinions, right? We have lots of different schools of thought that are coming at us. And we had some really interesting, you covered a lot of really interesting points related to that. And you mentioned, we talked about the Quran being not black and white, right?
Yes.
That there's a moral message to it. And you expanded on this. And I thought that was where the conversation got really interesting. So can you tell us, what are some of the biggest misconceptions you find people to have in this topic of who gets what after somebody dies from an Islamic perspective, and the different madhabs, the different schools of thought, and what are the things you see the most that you would like to kind of help people clarify that you've done in this project?
Yeah, the biggest issue is that the Quran as a moral worldview is sometimes missed, and people become strict constructionists, avoiding the understanding of the methodology to produce knowledge.
Right.
And that the Quran provides these general principles that we need to build on. Mm-hmm. And that these prior interpretations, prior explanations were made by human beings, and human beings are not perfect. They're imperfect. So the question is that we go to, like, for example, the issue about a wife sharing in the husband's wealth, and in the wealth that's acquired during the marriage. In most traditional Muslim countries, they just basically say that Islam had liberated women and gave Muslim women independent legal status, which is absolutely correct. That until the literally late 18th century, early 19th century, women did not have legal capacity, independent legal capacity in Western culture, where Islam provided Muslim women with that independent legal capacity, in the 7th century.
Fantastic point.
Yeah. So meanwhile, people ignore the fact that Islam in the 7th century also acknowledged that a woman's contribution, financial and non-financial, during the marriage would vest her with a financial and legal claim to the assets acquired during the marriage. And the Maliki school had adopted this position and created a legal concept called al-kad wa si'aya, meaning, work and effort. And this was based on a story involving Umar ibn al-Khattab, Amir al-Mu'mineen at that time, who's described the just. Umar ibn al-Khattab has always been considered this very just person that Muslims and companions would always reach out to resolve conflict. So there was this Muslim woman during the period during the time of the Amir al-Mu'mineen. She was well known as a dressmaker, and she would make these dresses and give them to her husband, who would go to the market, to the souk, and sell them. They had no children. He passed away. So strictly speaking, the Quranic distribution says that a wife is entitled to a quarter of the estate because there are no children. and 3/4 of the estate would go to the husband's heirs, the husband's family. So this poor woman goes to the Amir al-Mu'minin and says, there's something off here. This doesn't appear to be fair. You know that I'm the one who stays up all night making these dresses, and my husband goes and sells them. He says, yes, you are that famous dressmaker. I know who you are. The just solution, you're going to receive half of it for you and 1/4 for your inheritance and 1/4 for his family. So he flipped formula. So you imagine is that determination did not become the law in the United States until the 20th century. And women were not able to share in the marital estate because everything was owned by the husband. So Muslims have this vast corpus of an egalitarian gender equity wealth that you could build on. But a lot of Muslim scholars are either ignoring it, not paying attention to it. You have patriarchy sometimes that takes into account. And patriarchy can also be positive in some respects and negative in others. I mean, if I'm asked, about patriarchy, I mean, patriarchy to me means, protecting your wife, your daughter, your mother, that you have absolute responsibility for food, shelter, and clothing, and to care for them. It's not about dominance. It's not about superiority. Right. It's about wealth of responsibility that's on my shoulders. So
everybody
things need to be highlighted.
Yes, exactly. I want everybody who watches this on the replay to rewind this and listen again, because what you have said really sums up, it clarifies things for people who, and I say this from a point of experience, unfortunately, seeing a lot of people I know go through divorces where when it came time to be fair in terms that, like, there's a lot of women who are homemakers, but they invested most of their adult lives in taking care of a home, but they weren't seen as contributors. And, Islam is a very fair religion. So, absolutely. But what happens oftentimes is that women are pressured to just give up their rights. It's not that they don't know their rights. A lot of times they do, but they're just pressured to forego them for the ease of the other party. And that's really unfortunate because, as you said, we have this vast body of information and knowledge and law that is fair. It's not trying to cheat anybody out of anything. It's just being fair. And what dollar value do you put on a contributor that didn't actually physically, take money or earn money?
I'm going to get to that point, but think of this exchange. So one of the scholars in Morocco, back in I think it was like in the 12th century, he made a determination that a wife was entitled to half of the estate, and she was only entitled to 1/8. So the scholars around disputed. He said, "Okay, we understand, but your determination, your ruling is a half. That's excessive. We want to debate you on the basis of your determination, because the Islamic legal tradition is a tradition that is built on dialogue, disputation, and debate. And whoever has the build on the authority wins the day. This is not about, pushing through an interpretation. You're debating with the brightest other scholars, trying to determine divine will. What would God intend? What did God intend in this Quranic verse, or what did the Prophet Muhammad intend in this tradition?" So he told these scholars who want to debate him, "Okay, let's meet at the following location at the following time." So they go and they meet. When they started to debate, that was the time that the women are coming home from the fields, and they're carrying all of this fruits and vegetables and wood They are working, sweating all day to provide for their families and to provide for the husband and to provide for the extended family. When they debated him, he says, my fatwa, look who's the beneficiary of that fatwa. Just to illustrate that the Islam and the Quran is just. How do you not account for those ethical contributions?
Exactly. And so that's what needs to be lost today.
Absolutely, 100%. And when you talk about non-financial contributions, I'll use myself as an example. My wife was an elementary school teacher. We got married. I was young. I was still in graduate school. She left her career and her job, moved with me to England so I could study and do my graduate work, got pregnant and had a child, dedicated her entire life to the 3 children and to allow me to work 7 days a week to be able to build my career and provide. And do I want to say that my financial contributions are not on par or probably deficient to her contributions of bearing the children, raising them, keeping my household, allowing me to be an absentee parent because I have to work? Exactly. That doesn't count for anything. And that when if God forbid, we have a dissolution of marriage or I pass away, that she has not contributed to my financial success. So it's inconsistent with the moral message. It's inconsistent with the Quran.
More people need to be looking at it this way. You know, women have always historically played a supporting role to their husbands. I mean, who is going to keep down the fort?
Absolutely.
When men are out there, women are doing both today, working.
And the scholars had solutions in the pre-modern period that many are not picking up today. Like, for example, you have scholars that say the Muslim marriage contract requires the husband to provide food, shelter, and clothing. Some scholars said, in addition to those 3 categories, he's responsible to provide her with a domestic servant to handle all of the domestic chores around the house, from cleaning to cooking to caring for the children. So these are scholars. And then again, Islamic law is diverse. Some scholars said, well, only if she was accustomed to this kind of lifestyle before she got married. Others said, no, she's accustomed, even if she was or wasn't, she's entitled to it. So imagine right now, you sat down and you took care of this family, never got compensated for all those domestic chores. Yes, you did it voluntarily. Yes, you did it the goodness of your heart. But you should be accounted for that in the distribution of the marital estate. That's your financial contribution.
Exactly. I mean, you could call it, voluntary, but women aren't going to let their household just go up in smoke. It's going to be done somehow.
Absolutely.
Whether they feel like they have a choice or not, it has to get done. And a lot of times we're sort of guilted into, the reward is with Allah. Yes, we know that. But Islam is practical as well as spiritual. Absolutely. And so what you're saying is putting this, into real life. It's putting the theoretical, the theological into everyday, everyday practice, basically, every day.
I have a very good friend. I mean, I personally believe that Muslim women are the ones who are leading in this community or in these communities worldwide. And I have a very dear friend. She's a professor, a Moroccan female scholar. And she has this program called, How the Prophet Muhammad Lived. Mm-hmm. And she had one, 15-minute program just about how he dealt with his spouses. I mean, you got to tell me, if we want to emulate someone when it comes to gender, we should emulate the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He used to fix his own clothes. He would make his own food. He would never raise his voice. I mean, and that's not machismo. Men right now, we have this machismo. I'm the man of the house. Yes, I understand there's some gender differences with regard to, households or things like that, but it's not demeaning in dominance to your female relatives or your wife or your daughter or what have you. So I just think that we are totally disengaged from the beauty of the prophetic tradition, and we are becoming disengaged from the Quranic message. Like everybody would focus on one particular verse, ignoring 100 others.
Exactly.
You have to look at the whole totality of the picture, not just one piece of the puzzle.
It's so interesting because I interviewed Zainab Ismail. She talks about prophetic nutrition, and we had a very similar conversation based on food and the lifestyle of the prophets. But it's so interesting how the parallel is here too. It's just, we need to look at this as holistic, whether it's our food or our finances, everything until the time we die, we leave this earth, and what we leave behind, that we have the best examples. And we like to tout that. We like to talk about the history. We like to say, Islam gives women rights more than any other religion. But what you're talking about here is, and I think what you're giving us in this platform and ShariaWiz is this sort of, in my view, cracking the surface of opening up discussion and knowledge, and like a rebirth of this knowledge, of putting that knowledge into practice, because we haven't really been able to do that. I don't think we've really had. We've had a lot of theory. We've had people go to classes. We have a lot of things online, but what are we actually putting into practice? And that's what I love about this, is that I can engage with my own religion in a way that allows me to really practice what I know to be truth and what I really believe in. And I think this will open up a lot more discussions on the issue of not just women or women's inheritance, but the whole engagement of men and women, and how we're working together or not, according to the Islamic way. And you mentioned the diverse opinions, that's fine. But are those, are we taking those diverse opinions and, holistically and putting them into practice in ways that, because I hear this in halal all the time, right? You have different ways that, different beliefs in terms of what is halal. You have the Maliki school of thought, the Shafi'i. There's different methods of sacrifice, for example, but they're all right. They're all correct, but they're just done in different ways.
And they're all right because there is no monopoly over divine will.
Exactly.
The process that makes Islam so rich, so dynamic, is this constant search for the truth.
Exactly.
We have to constantly, a jurist has to exert and exhaust all his faculties by engaging in the divine texts, by reviewing surrounding circumstances. And after all of that, he would render his decision and he would say, Allah knows best. This is the best that I could do.
Right.
No one can know what God thinks, because that's why Islam evolved and adjusts. Because Allah is truth, Allah's justice, Allah's love, Allah's beauty. We have to strive to get closer to that eternal truth.
Right.
Only person with that eternal truth is Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we can try to get closer. And that's the engine that had Islam become the civilization for 1,000 years. That was the leading civilization of mysticism, the civilization of math and science and astrology.
Yes.
Not just Islam of military. The strength and the beauty of Islam was not the military. It was the science and the intellectual contributions to humanity.
And weren't scholars in those times knowledgeable about many different subjects? Like, they dedicated their lives to not just being focused on one thing. They were, scholars of not just law, but also medicine, also other subjects, right? It wasn't just, whereas today I think a lot of people are specialists in one area and don't really branch out, or the common Muslim really doesn't take in a whole lot of information that goes deep. Not that we have to, because really, we can rely on our scholars, but there's definitely a gap. There's definitely a gap that, we're living in this modern age, but yet it seems like during that time, things were a lot better for the Muslim community. What can we do to kind of bridge this gap now? What can we do?
I mean, the problem is so complex because of, the colonialist legacy is still with us. Because one of the main things of the colonialist legacy is that, yes, the Islamic tradition was suffering in its intellectual output, by the 13th, 14th century, and it was still building. But by the time we got to the 16th, 17th century, we were still trying to adjust. But how do we adjust? We adjust within our own organic system. So the Sharia, as a methodology that produced knowledge, that became a little bit, suffering some setbacks. Mm-hmm. Once colonialism hit the ground running in Muslim societies, that tradition got ruptured. So when the Sharia schools attracted the cream of the crop, the brilliant, the absolute geniuses would go into the religious training. Now the geniuses wanted to go to medical school. They wanted to go to law school. They wanted to go to engineering. And then there was a rupture of the system. So the system stopped working. So from the 19th century to now, we don't have that traditional system that was an epistemology that would produce the knowledge that would adapt with the modern times and what was happening. So currently, that consequence, reconstituting society, I mean, think about it. I come from a village. In that village, we have extended family. We have a tribe that we belong to. Everybody is protected within that tribe. Everybody's protected within that extended family. That's the pre-modern safety net.
Yes.
But today in my village, it doesn't matter anymore. Now what matters is the nuclear family. Just me, my parents, and my children. So the modernity, the modern nation state, the borders, citizenship, technology has reconstituted societies.
Yeah.
And we're having difficulty dealing with it. And American culture is having difficulty dealing with it. Western culture, how do you imagine how we are dealing with it? Because this was a shock. So that's why we're having these issues, and we need to do more work. And Muslims have to understand that ijtihad is not only relating to rituals.
Can you explain to everybody who doesn't know what ijtihad is?
Ijtihad is meaning that this is the innovation, the intellectual output, the study. It's not just in the religious sciences. Math is in the religious sciences. Physics is in the religious sciences. Sociology, anthropology. All of these are part of the innovation and building blocks of intellectual output to be Muslim and to utilize the moral message, because the divine message is the driving force for us to better understand the world, to better understand how God wants us to have an ethical lifestyle. When we do economy, the ethical lifestyle, I mean, when we look at riba, we look at interest, we look at the gap between the rich and the poor, we look at all of these things, Islam will not permit it. So we have to have Muslim economists driven by the moral message to find economic solutions. Not just simply saying don't charge interest, not simply to saying just, oh, let's just do Islamic finance. Islam is a message to humanity. Exactly. Our solutions, our moral philosophy can provide solutions for humanity. We also, as the Jewish tradition, as the Christian tradition, the Buddhist tradition, the Western social humanist tradition, the atheists, whatever, all of us have a contribution to make the country better.
Yes.
We have to step up to the plate and rely on our divine message in the Quran to guide us to find solutions for the ills that are plaguing modern society.
It's difficult for Muslims, right? Because it seems like, you know, all these things you mentioned, the cultural aspect, the religious aspect, there's layers upon layers of things for us to uncover. And we kind of have to go deep as a community. We can't just, you know, sort of look at the surface of things anymore. We have to unravel, you know, what this experience has been, all the history, all of the, you know, traumas. There's a lot to unpackage. But once we do that, we can start to see solutions form.
It's about critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking. So I'll give you a simple example about critical thinking. I go to a imam and I say, my client wants a religious divorce and she's entitled to her mahr. She wants her postponed mahr. Mm-hmm. He says, oh, you know what? Why doesn't she just ask for khula? Meaning, khula is a way of dissolution of marriage where the wife waives her mahr.
Yeah.
But I said, the husband has been abusive. Why should my client be forced to select a dissolution of marriage method that would forfeit her financial rights? Yes.
Exactly.
You know, so be critical. If she has been abused, therefore her request to dissolve should not waive her financial rights. So we have to work and ask more questions.
Yes, and all too often that is the exact thing that is being asked to be waived all the time in an effort to make it easy on, you know, other members of the family. That's a whole other topic. And I know you worked with the first case of an Islamic divorce, right, in the U.S.?
Yeah, I was the attorney for the wife in the first case in New Jersey in 2002, literally 20 years ago, that enforced and recognized the wife's right to her mahr to be paid by the husband. So these are all interrelated to estate planning and to inheritance. All of these issues are part of that ecosystem that we call Sharia compliant and halal compliant, that would lead us to a moral and ethical lifestyle. And the Sharia is very flexible. So don't think that you have to abandon your tradition and do your estate planning based on American secular law because you think there are no solutions in the Sharia. The solutions are there.
And they're enforceable in the U.S. court of law. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this, right? So that's important for people to understand that, you know, things are not always black and white. And what I find a bit sad, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, is that the word Sharia has really taken a beating. And when you described it so eloquently about, you know, how the most brilliant minds would come and study Sharia.
Absolutely.
But today, using the word Sharia or Sharia compliant or anything, you know, people have real reservation about using that word because of the negative connotations unjustly given. And we know the reasons, but I commend you for using that in your platform because you know the meaning, you know the understanding, and it really is going to help people, I think, to understand the true meaning of Sharia.
My marketing company and PR company told me not to name it ShariaWiz.
I was going to ask you that. And
I said, you know, this is a project about Islam in America. I will not allow the bigots to define what Sharia is. We are Muslim, and what does the Sharia mean to us? We define what it is. So
it is really our job to name it and to own it and to wipe out the negative connotations.
Absolutely.
Right? Nobody else can do that for us.
Yep. And we shouldn't be running away and hiding. We should take it head on. You know, the Sharia is how you leave money to charity. The Sharia is how you treat your mother and your father.
Exactly.
You know, the Sharia is how you divide your estate. The Sharia is how you treat animals. The Sharia is how you eat.
Yes.
The Sharia is an eco-ethical system, a compass that guides us.
Yes.
And our level of religiosity varies. There is no one Islam that is all perfect. I mean, we have Muslims who are extremely compliant and people who are not, and everything in between. but we believe in Allah and Muhammad as the prophet and the messenger. We are Muslim, and we do not judge people. Islam does not judge people. And that's the other thing that bothers me, is that you know, you have all of these people on Facebook and these alleged scholars sitting down and judging everybody and judging their Islam. Allah's going to judge our Islam, not you as an individual. And that's something that, you know, I'm hoping that with this project, with the diversity that the Islam of this country is, and the fact that we have some of our brightest people are going to Columbia and to Harvard and to all these law schools and studying Islam and studying the Sharia. So I think the land is shifting in the U.S. At least the Muslim American community, they're generating amazing scholars, and we have some of the best at Columbia University. Professor Wa'il Hallaq, at UCLA, Khalid Abul Fadl. You have major names in the U.S. that are contributing to this renaissance and this new, innovative moral message anchored in the Quran and the Sunnah.
That is so good to hear. That is so good to hear. That's a beacon of light, because I think we've gone through some really rough times in the last 20 years in America, Muslims in America, but inshallah, we'll come out of it stronger and wiser, and with messages to not just all of America, but to the rest of the world that, you know, we're getting this right. We're coming back in a way that is helpful and just. I think what you just said a few minutes ago about, and I won't get your words exactly right, but basically, when we think of people who enforce law, judges, lawyers, a lot of times in our minds, we can think of that as of those topics as being very black and white. But what you described was that the real essence of it is knowing so much information, doing real scholarly work to get to an answer, and then still in the end saying, but Allah knows best. That's real humility.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we really need to, that's what we really need to get back to, I think.
And that is one of the characteristics that you can say that the faqih cannot be a autocrat or authoritarian in his opinions, because Allah knows best. And the Sharia says every human conduct or action comes under a degree, 5 degrees: halal and haram, and 3 in between. You got mandub, that you have something that is disliked, you have something that is indifferent, and you have something that's obligatory. And then you have the halal and the haram.
Yeah.
So the Sharia and the scholars fixated on the gray. That's the dynamism. That's the diversity.
Yeah.
You know, and people just talk about halal and haram, but they miss those other 3 degrees that are in every Sharia book.
Would you say that, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm just really curious, and I think other people might be curious about this as well, is that, you know, people come to the US for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is and this could be debatable at this point in time, but historically in the last, let's say 100 years, for the justice. They see the US as you know, you're going to get more justice here than a lot of other countries in the world. So was the American justice system influenced by Sharia in any way? Is there anything in it that was taken from an Islamic justice system?
Well, there's a very interesting book about the Quran and Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah,
A very well-known scholar. I forgot her name. I actually read the book twice, especially the issue about religious tolerance and diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson owned a Quran. I actually own one of those first edition Qurans, 1734.
Wow.
Quran that Thomas Jefferson owned. The one thing in the estate planning space, Muslim jurists were amazing at estate planning and created a lot of instruments. So the trust product, Professor John Maqdisi who was at University, I think, of North Carolina Law School, he had done this amazing study, 150-page article that traced the concept of the trust in the common law system actually originated from Islamic law back in the 11th and 12th century.
Interesting. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So the waqf,
there are a lot of parallels.
The trust that was influenced, because that waqf did not exist in any of the legal systems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually your ancestors and your relatives, Yovain, that helped transport this concept to England. When the Muslims had been occupying or had lived in Sicily, Normandies came in the 11th century and defeated the Muslims. But when they defeated the Muslims, the administrative system was so well developed in Sicily. They had diwans, they had courts, they had all of this. The Brits, or these Normans, they said, hey, this system is working. We don't need to destroy it. So that was where it seeped into the common law system. So Muslim scholars used Islamic estate planning. Like we use trusts, family trust. Well, they had what's called al-waqf al-dharri or al-waqf al-ahli. So al-waqf, which is a trust, you were able to establish a waqf and say, I want the beneficiaries of this endowment that I created to be my sons and daughters equally. That was halal. You could do equal between male and female. You could do, I only want this waqf to benefit my daughters. That was legitimate. So these types of instruments were being used in 10th, 9th, 11th, and 12th century Muslim jurists. And in the U.S., it's only recently that we started using these trusts and stuff. Yeah.
Only recently. Well, that would kind of explain some of the bureaucracy in Italy. I think that there's, and it's very similar to what I saw in Turkey as well. I was really kind of surprised by that. But now I'm kind of seeing maybe there's a connection, but that's another topic. But very, very interesting. We have to do more of this on the history, because
I would love to. People don't know our history. People don't know the Muslim history.
No, and when you find out more, I mean, you really, when I hear about these things about Sicily, I mean, personally, I feel like I learn more about myself and my own culture, but that's another story as well. But it is fascinating to see the links, because, sadly, a lot of people avoid, a lot of Muslims will avoid Islamic style or Islamic instruments of doing these kind of things, because they think that they're quote unquote backwards or not modern enough or not developed. But we are sorely wrong, but we're getting back on track, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I have one last question for you, and this is about your involvement with Karama. And you are the only male board member of Karama, correct?
I was the only male board member back in 2003.
Okay.
And then they added. Currently, I don't think there is another board member. It may be me, but they allowed male members after I joined. I support Karama, Muslim Women Lawyers for Human Rights. So please go to karama.org. It's a Muslim women lawyers organization led by amazing Muslim women lawyers. And the objective is that we can affect equality and equity and protect Muslim women and empower Muslim women within our own tradition. We don't need Western feminism. We don't need Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's our own tradition. And for a sustainable, long-term gender equity to be effective, it has to be organic and it has to work from within our tradition. And Muslim women have to lead. I see that the future of our tradition is with Muslim women. And I'm proud that I learned from many of these Muslim women jurists. I love engaging with them. and they are really innovative. And there's a bright future for Muslim Americans because of the Muslim women like yourself, like Linda Farsul, like Aziz Al-Hibri, the Care, Zahra, all of these Muslim women, they're the ones who are leading in our country. I think us men, we're too comfortable with our position, and we're dropping the ball.
Well, it's really refreshing to hear you say that. And you're coming not just from a personal perspective, you're also coming from knowledge. You're coming from a professional experience and research, and you have years of really understanding the plight of Muslims in America and other countries as well, but particularly women, based on our conversations. We didn't get into that today, but so I can honestly say that to hear you talk about these things is, it's not only refreshing, but it's also motivating, because I think we can kind of get lost in our own worlds and think, where are things really going? But, hearing you talk about the leadership capability of Muslim women, and we know that it's there, we know, but men also need to get behind and behind us and be supporting roles for us to push us forward as well. We need each other. Everybody,
absolutely.
It's not, we don't live in a vacuum. But all of the topics we discussed within this estate planning are very interesting. I think we're just scratching the surface. I think there's a lot more to talk about. But for the purpose of today's conversation, I know we went on a lot of tangents. I just think that you highlighting the importance of American Muslims creating and preparing their estates is really something that
leave a legacy. Don't forget.
And I'll be the first.
Your family. Why wait and have them fighting? Protect your family, just like you organized your end of life, your daily life. You gotta organize your end of life. That is imperative that you take care of it.
I'll be the first to admit that when you told me about ShariaWiz, it took me a moment, more than a moment, to really come to terms with it. I think as Muslims, we know we're always reminded of our death. We're always reminded that this life is short and we're going to pass through it pretty quickly, and we don't take any moment for granted. But it was an emotional process to get to the point of actually facing it. So, yes. But once I did, it was less scary because of how easy you've set it up. And I also thought, well, I don't have children. I don't have Muslim relatives. What's the point? I kind of really just did think, what's the point? That was my own black and white thinking. But I want other people to, and I know some other people made comments here that they also are in that situation. I just want to encourage them to, don't be like I was, go to the site, see how easy it is, and see, it also shows the importance of every individual, that we all can leave something behind, even if we don't think that we have anybody to leave it to.
It's a humbling process, by the way.
Humbling process, yes, exactly.
Think, that our time here is limited.
Yes, and it's a responsibility.
Absolutely.
It's a responsibility. I mean, we may think we don't have much, but we all have something.
Absolutely.
We all have something. And so it's part of house cleaning. It's a part of, just being a responsible citizen and a responsible Muslim, which is what we're called to do. Do you have time for one question?
Sure.
Question or two. Somebody, and this was way back here, somebody asked about, when we were talking on estate planning only, what if the property is tenancy in common? Is that something you can answer?
Well, it depends on what state you're in, because the tenancy in common, if I'm not mistaken, is really the same thing, that it's with a right of survivorship, meaning if you own it with a tenancy in common, that means that when you pass away, it'll go to the survivor. Mm-hmm. That will not go through your will. If you wanted to change that, which some people want to do that to be Sharia compliant, on the ShariaWiz platform, when you select these properties, you will change the ownership to tenants in common without the right of survivorship. So 50% of that estate, of that real estate, will go to your heirs, and 50% will go to the survivor.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think he's left the conversation, but I'll ping him and ask him to watch the replay on that. My colleague in the halal industry, Habib Ghanem, I don't know if he's still here, but he messaged me asking about hospitals. When you get into the hospital, he's asking if this is something that you
yes, the living will, when you do a complete estate plan, which would include an Islamic will and an Islamic trust, a living will, healthcare directive, and a general power of attorney. The ShariaWiz template for the healthcare directive is Sharia compliant.
Awesome.
So it's letting everybody know, the doctors know, that you're Muslim, that you want to be your end of life care to be compliant with your Islamic principles, and you select what you want to do. Whether you want to do not resuscitate order, do you object to organ donation, do you want to be on life support? All of those issues are in your living will, and that's also part of the ShariaWiz estate plan.
So that's the full package, right?
That's the full package. Okay.
Awesome to know. This is such a great service. And I think, especially during the times of COVID, we've all been really rattled with life and death. We've all, I think a lot of people have had time to really think about that, young or old, anything can happen. But instead of feeling out of control, this is a service that can help us get a little bit more in control. And then if anybody needs to go to the hospital, Allah forbid, for any reason, they have their yeah.
That's the first question you're asked when you go to the hospital. Do you have a healthcare directive?
Yeah, that's what he mentioned. So actually, it sounds like, especially for single people, I think this is
or people who travel.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. So you would just print it out and carry it with you then. Right.
Awesome. And you would have your family have a copy of it. You could even let your doctor have a copy. Let them know what your intentions and your wishes are.
I like this better than sitting in a legal office and doing it. I mean, I've done similar.
And it's a lot cheaper and it's private.
It's a lot cheaper, private, but I've had time to absorb things. When the questions are asked, sometimes it can get a little emotional because this is about your life and your death.
Absolutely.
And so having a little bit of time instead of, being asked, and having to answer within a minute or two, this is so much, I think it's the way of the future. I think you've done a really innovative thing as well as important. So I thank you. Read a great service to our community.
Thank you very much, Elaine.
So much. Is there anything? Sorry.
You're also leading, and thank you for your contributions to the Halal Kitchen. And we're all working in the same ecosystem. We want the moral message of the Quran and this ethical lifestyle to be a guiding light for all of us, inshallah.
Inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you infinitely and your family for being supportive of you to do this project as well. I know that it's not possible without that.
Without that support, absolutely.
Yeah. Kudos to everybody. So, if is there anything else you would like to add?
No, that's it. Just go to ShariaWiz.com and test it. You got nothing to lose by trying because you don't have to pay.
Right.
Take advantage of the learning process, and it'll humble you and manage your affairs. Protect your family in a faith-filled way.
Yes, and for those of you watching, you can see the links on the Facebook page, and in the YouTube replay, we will add the links in the commentary in the description box. So thank you so much, Abed, for being here today, and I really hope you can come back and we can talk more and dig deeper.
Absolutely.
I love this topic. We've had some great conversations personally, so I think we can expand on those here for everybody else to benefit from as well.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for inviting me, and assalamu alaikum to everybody.
Wa alaikum salam.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.